In this lecture, I'm going to discuss components. Components are different objects or functionality that you can attach to your actors. There are many different kinds of components. Some of the types of components are objects that are also used as actors on their own. For example, you could attach a static mesh as a component to another actor, or you could attach a light as a component to another actor. Other components, such as movement components, do not have their own actor type and are only used as components on other actors. For example, a rotating movement component attached to an actor will cause that actor to rotate but wouldn't have much use on its own. Alright, so now I'm going to construct a crude flashlight by attaching a spotlight component to a cylindrical static mesh. So first, let me shape and scale my mesh. So now, when you want to attach a component to an actor, select that actor, then go over to the Details panel and click on the Add button. You'll get a long list of different components you can add, grouped by category. There will also be a search bar that you can use to quickly find a type of component by name. So I'm going to go down to the Lights category and choose Spotlight. And this will add a spotlight as a component of my static mesh cylinder. And you can see the component structure of your actor in this section of the Details panel here. So first of all, notice that the static mesh itself is technically considered a component. So let me drag in another cylinder to demonstrate this. So this is a new cylinder mesh I just added to the level. What this is saying here is that this is an actor named Cylinder 2 that has a static mesh as its root component. And that static mesh is the white cylinder. So if I go back to the flashlight I'm creating, you can see that the spotlight has been added as a subcomponent or child of the static mesh component, which is the root component for this actor. Okay, so I have my spotlight attached, but I still need to position it relative to the mesh. So if I select just the spotlight in this window here, I can use the tools in the viewport to move and rotate it. So I'm going to position it at one end of the mesh here. And then I'm going to rotate it so that the light shines forward relative to the mesh. Okay, so let me delete the other lights in the level so that you can see this one better. And also, I'm going to rename this actor to Flashlight. So now I have this flashlight actor in my level, and if I move it or rotate it, it will move or rotate the cylinder, which is a static mesh that is the root component of the actor. And it will also move or rotate the spotlight, because the spotlight is a subcomponent of the static mesh. Alright, so this is an important concept to understand, that the transform of an actor is based on its root component. So for example, when an actor is rotated, all of its components will rotate around the center of the root component of the actor. Alright, so from here, I could continue to add components if I wanted. So let's say I wanted a little cube mesh to represent a button on the flashlight. With the flashlight selected, I just need to click on the Add button again, then select this cube mesh here. I'll rename that to Button, and with just the button component selected, I will use the viewport tools to scale and position it. Alright, so now I have this button mesh as a subcomponent of the cylinder mesh as well. Okay, so what if I wanted to add a static mesh from the content browser as a component? In that case, after clicking on the Add button, instead of choosing one of the pre-made meshes available in the Modes panel, I would just click on the generic static mesh. And this will add an empty static mesh component to my actor. But now I have the ability to choose which static mesh I want to use by using the static mesh section of the Details panel. And this will allow me to choose a mesh from the content browser. Okay, so that's how to add static meshes or lights as components to your actors. Let's take a look now at a component that only exists as a component and not as its own actor. So I'm going to drag a cube mesh into my level, and I'm going to set its mobility to movable. Then I'm going to click the Add button, go down to the Movement category, and select Rotating Movement. So now I've added a rotating movement component to this cube, and if I press play, you can see it spinning around. Now, if I use this window to select the rotating movement itself, I can edit some of the properties of the component. So the first property is rotation rate, which specifies how much to rotate the actor and in which direction. So whatever angle you enter in one of these boxes, it will rotate the actor that many degrees per second. So right now, it's only doing a yaw rotation, which means rotation around the z-axis, and it's rotating at a rate of 180 degrees per second. So it will do one full rotation every 2 seconds. Another property you can edit is the pivot translation. By default, with this at 0, 0, 0, the object will rotate around its center. But you can enter values here to change the pivot point to a different location. So if I enter 100 as the x value, this is saying start at the center of the object, go 100 units along the x-axis, and use that location as the pivot point. So now if I press play, you can see the cube is no longer rotating around its center, it's now rotating around a point right about here. Alright, so that will conclude the lecture on components.